Greg Kovach was once considered the largest professional bodybuilder to ever live, a Canadian athlete whose sheer mass redefined physical extremes in the 1990s. Standing 6 feet 4 inches and weighing over 400 pounds in the off-season, he possessed arms measuring over 25 inches and legs that rivaled the size of an average man's torso. However, Kovach's focus on size above all else came at a steep physiological price. To maintain his enormous build, he consumed upward of 10,000 calories daily and relied heavily on anabolic steroids, growth hormone, and insulin cycles to sustain muscle volume. His cardiovascular system struggled to support his massive frame, leading to chronic fatigue, high blood pressure, and heart complications. Despite his enormous presence, Kovach's competitive career never matched his hype. He often placed low due to poor symmetry and extreme water retention. After retiring, his health deteriorated quickly. In 2013, he died from heart failure at just 44 years old. His story became symbolic of bodybuilding's obsession with pushing past genetic and biological limits, revealing that size alone can't compensate for the irreversible toll such methods take on the body. Rich Piana was one of the most openly enhanced bodybuilders in history, known not just for his massive 300-pound frame, but for his brutal honesty about steroid use. Born in California in 1970, he began lifting at 11 and competed through the 1990s before shifting to social media fame. Piana built a brand around transparency, revealing the complex and dangerous drug stacks he used: insulin, growth hormone, testosterone, and anabolic steroids, sometimes in combinations lasting years without proper medical supervision. He also injected synthol oil directly into his muscles to expand size beyond what training alone could achieve. While these methods made him a viral figure with millions of followers, they put tremendous strain on his organs. Piana often discussed side effects like collapsed veins, kidney stress, and blood pressure spikes. In 2017, he collapsed at home while getting a haircut and never regained consciousness. His autopsy showed an enlarged heart and fatty liver, classic signs of chronic anabolic abuse. Despite his charisma and business success, Piana's relentless pursuit of mass and online persona ultimately showcased the harsh physiological cost of extreme bodybuilding. Andreas Münzer became the most extreme example of what conditioning can cost. Born in Austria in 1964, he was admired for his razor-thin skin, near-zero body fat, and deeply striated muscles that looked carved from stone. To reach that state, Münzer relied on a cocktail of anabolic steroids, diuretics, thyroid hormones, and fat-burning drugs administered in dangerously high doses. He maintained this chemical regimen year-round instead of cycling on and off, leaving his internal organs under constant stress. His pre-contest preparation included total sodium depletion, potassium manipulation, and heavy use of loop diuretics to remove every trace of water under the skin. The visible results stunned audiences, but internally, his liver and kidneys were failing. In March 1996, after a guest posing appearance, Münzer suffered severe stomach pain and collapsed. Surgeons discovered massive internal bleeding and a liver resembling melted wax. He died shortly afterward at just 31 years old. His autopsy revealed multi-organ failure triggered by toxic chemical imbalance. Münzer's death exposed the lethal extremes of pharmacological bodybuilding and became the defining warning for athletes who equate shredded appearance with perfection. Dallas McCarver represented the new generation of mass monsters, genetically gifted, ambitious, and determined to dominate the sport. Born in 1991 in Tennessee, he earned his IFBB Pro card at just 21 years old, one of the youngest in history. His size and shape seemed almost superhuman, standing 6 feet tall and weighing close to 300 pounds on stage, with balanced proportions that made him a future Mr. Olympia contender. But behind the success was a dangerous mix of overtraining, extreme bulking, and heavy reliance on performance-enhancing drugs. McCarver's rapid growth required enormous food intake and chemical support, insulin, growth hormone, and steroids to maintain his mass. His health began showing signs of strain, including shortness of breath and high blood pressure. In August 2017, at only 26 years old, he was found unconscious at home after reportedly choking on food. But the autopsy revealed a much deeper issue: cardiac enlargement and severe atherosclerosis, both linked to drug use. His heart weighed over twice the normal size. Dallas's death shook the bodybuilding world, underscoring how even the most genetically gifted athletes are not immune to the hidden cardiovascular dangers of extreme enhancement culture. Paul Dillett, nicknamed Freakenstein, embodied the visual definition of a mass monster during the 1990s, towering at 6 feet 2 inches inches with over 280 pounds of densely packed muscle. His enormous frame and cartoonish proportions made him one of the most memorable figures in bodybuilding history. However, Dillit's extreme pursuit of size and dryness came with severe physical risks. During the 1994 Arnold Classic, he infamously froze mid-pose on stage, unable to move as his muscles locked from severe dehydration and electrolyte imbalance caused by aggressive diuretic use. Stage assistants had to carry him off as his body shut down under the bright lights. The incident exposed the dangerous tactics competitors use to appear dry and shredded, eliminating nearly all water from the body to enhance muscle definition. Dillit survived, but the event left a lasting mark on the sport's darker side. He later admitted that the preparation methods used by athletes, including himself, were unsustainable and potentially deadly. Despite recovering and continuing to compete, Dillit's on-stage collapse became one of bodybuilding's most haunting reminders that perfection under the spotlight often comes at the cost of health behind the scenes. Mike Matarazzo was one of the most beloved and hard-working bodybuilders of the 1990s, known for his blue-collar attitude and enormous arms and calves. Born in Boston in 1965, he began his career as a boxer before transitioning to bodybuilding, where his intensity and charisma quickly earned him recognition. Matarazzo competed during the Golden Mass era against legends like Dorian Yates and Flex Wheeler, reaching the Olympia stage multiple times. However, to keep up with the escalating standards of size and definition, he turned to the same powerful anabolic drugs and diuretics common in that era. Over time, these substances, combined with constant heavy training and strain on his cardiovascular system, led to severe heart problems. By his early 40s, Matarazzo had undergone multiple heart surgeries, including triple bypass surgery. He openly warned younger athletes about the cost of chasing extreme mass, calling the drug use in modern bodybuilding insanity. Despite lifestyle changes, his heart could not recover from years of abuse, and he died of heart failure in 2014 at just 48 years old. His death became a sobering lesson about how even the most disciplined athletes can't outwork the consequences of chemical excess. Nasser El Sonbati was one of bodybuilding's most intelligent and articulate competitors, fluent in several languages, with a university degree in political science, yet he was also one of its most extreme examples of physical transformation. Born in 1965 in Stuttgart, Germany, to an Egyptian father and Yugoslav mother, Nasser began training in the 1980s and quickly developed into one of the heaviest, most muscular men of his time. Weighing up to 320 pounds in competition shape, he was often compared to Dorian Yates for his combination of size and conditioning. However, that level of mass required relentless chemical enhancement. Nasser was open about using large amounts of anabolic steroids, growth hormone, and insulin to maintain his massive build year-round. His liver and kidneys endured constant pressure from both the substances and the strain of supporting such a large body. In 2013, after years of health decline and travel-related illness, Nasser died suddenly in Egypt at just 47 years old, reportedly from kidney failure and respiratory complications. His death reinforced a grim truth. Even those who approach the sport scientifically and intelligently can still fall victim to the physical extremes required to compete at bodybuilding's highest level. Art Atwood was known for his staggering size and dense muscle volume, even among the mass monsters of the early 2000s. Born in Wisconsin in 1973, Atwood entered the professional scene later than most, but quickly made an impression with his enormous chest and round muscle bellies. Weighing over 280 pounds on stage and exceeding 320 pounds in the off-season, he embodied the modern pursuit of mass without compromise. To maintain that look, Atwood reportedly used extensive cycles of anabolic steroids, human growth hormone, and insulin, all while consuming vast amounts of food daily to sustain muscle growth. Though he retired from active competition, Atwood continued living the lifestyle of a full-time bodybuilder, keeping his weight and drug protocols high even without contests ahead. This put severe stress on his cardiovascular system. In 2011, at only 37 years old, he suffered a sudden heart attack and died before medical help could reach him. His death shocked the bodybuilding world because he was still relatively young, healthy-looking, and active. Atwood's story became another case study in how continuous mass retention, even off stage, can accelerate fatal heart and organ failure within the sport. Luke Sando was one of Britain's brightest bodybuilding talents, a rising star known for combining massive muscle with aesthetic flow, charisma, and humility. Born in 1989, Sando earned his IFBB Pro card in 2015 and quickly climbed the ranks, placing high in major competitions such as the Arnold Classic. He was praised for his balanced physique that harkened back to the 1990s era of proportion and artistry. However, behind his success was a relentless push for improvement fueled by heavy training intensity, performance-enhancing drugs, and the mental strain of professional bodybuilding. Sando openly discussed his struggles with depression, pressure, and the dark side of the industry, where competitors are often expected to maintain impossible standards year-round. By 2020, the demands on his body and mind had taken a severe toll. In May of that year, he was found dead at his home at just 30 years old. Although initial reports suggested heart failure, later accounts pointed to suicide linked to emotional exhaustion and mental health struggles. His passing reminded the bodybuilding world that the dangers of taking it too far are not only physical, but psychological as well. Nick Trigili represents the cautionary tale of a modern-era bodybuilder who experienced the severe health consequences of excessive drug use and extreme lifestyle habits, but lived to tell about it. Born in 1988, Trigili became an NPC Nationals heavyweight champion in 2014 and transitioned into the IFBB Pro League soon after. His early success came from enormous size and conditioning, built through years of strict dieting and the heavy use of anabolic steroids, insulin, and growth hormone. Like many competitors of his generation, he pushed far beyond safe physiological limits to maintain an elite-level physique. After several years of competing, his health began to deteriorate rapidly. He suffered from dangerously high blood pressure, kidney issues, and hormonal imbalance, all linked to prolonged cycles of performance-enhancing drugs. Forced into early retirement, Trigili turned his experience into education, creating a successful YouTube channel to expose the harsh realities of the bodybuilding lifestyle. He openly discusses blood work, organ failure risks, and the mental toll of withdrawal and post-cycle recovery. While Trigili survived what many did not, his story highlights that even living survivors of extreme bodybuilding often carry lifelong consequences from years spent chasing perfection through chemistry. Craig Titus is one of bodybuilding's most infamous figures, not for his physique, but for how far his obsession with fame, chaos, and control ultimately went. Born in 1967 in California, Titus was a competitive bodybuilder throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, known for his aggressive personality, muscular development, and constant pursuit of attention. He competed in multiple IFBB events and appeared in magazines, but behind the scenes, his life spiraled into drug use, violence, and criminal activity. Titus was heavily involved in the Las Vegas party scene, where steroids, narcotics, and manipulation became routine parts of his lifestyle. In 2005, his world collapsed when he and his wife, fitness competitor Kelly Ryan, were arrested for the brutal murder of their assistant, Melissa James. Investigators discovered James's burned body inside Titus's car, and evidence tied both to the crime. The case shocked the fitness world and destroyed Titus's reputation forever. He was sentenced to over 20 years in prison for murder, arson, and kidnapping. Titus's story represents a different kind of taking it too far, not through physical limits, but through the psychological and moral collapse brought on by ego, excess, and unchecked power within the bodybuilding subculture. Greg Valentino became one of the most recognizable and controversial figures in bodybuilding history, not for competition success, but for pushing the limits of physical appearance to unnatural extremes. Born in New York in 1959, Valentino was a dedicated natural bodybuilder for over 2 decades before turning to synthol, an oil-based substance injected directly into muscles to increase their size artificially. The results were shocking. His arms ballooned to over 28 inches, appearing cartoonish and distorted. The fame he gained from his outrageous look also made him a lightning rod for criticism and ridicule. Valentino's use of synthol led to severe infections, abscesses, and eventual muscle rupture. One of his biceps literally exploded from internal pressure, forcing emergency surgery and leaving him permanently scarred. He later admitted that his obsession with having the biggest arms in the world became a psychological addiction rather than a pursuit of athletic excellence. Though he later became a motivational speaker and writer, Valentino's story remains one of bodybuilding's most grotesque cautionary tales. It illustrates how the drive for attention and physical dominance can easily transform into self-destruction when image overtakes health, discipline, and reason. Trevor Smith was a bodybuilder, writer, and coach whose sheer size and training intensity made him a legend in underground bodybuilding circles. Standing over 6 feet tall and weighing close to 400 pounds, Smith embodied the extreme pursuit of mass that defined the late 1990s and early 2000s. He was known for his brutal, high-volume training style and an almost obsessive dedication to pushing his physical limits beyond what most athletes could tolerate. To sustain his enormous physique, Smith reportedly used heavy cycles of anabolic steroids, growth hormone, and insulin, combined with massive food intake and minimal recovery periods. Despite his intimidating appearance, Smith was highly intelligent and wrote extensively about bodybuilding philosophy and mental discipline. However, the physical toll of maintaining his size was devastating. His cardiovascular system was under continuous strain, and his heart and organs simply could not support the weight and chemical demands placed on them. In 2004, at just 33 years old, Smith died suddenly from heart failure. His death underscored how even knowledgeable, self-aware athletes can lose control when performance enhancement becomes an addiction to excess rather than a pursuit of excellence. Victor Richards is often remembered as one of the most enigmatic figures in bodybuilding history, a man who achieved near-mythical size without ever fully embracing professional competition. Born in Nigeria in 1964, Richards stood around 5 feet 10 inches tall but reportedly weighed over 330 pounds at his peak, maintaining a physique that looked both aesthetic and impossibly massive. His proportions, full muscle bellies, and symmetry made him appear superhuman, leading many to speculate about his use of extreme performance-enhancing drugs and experimental growth hormone stacks. Unlike many of his peers, Richards often avoided competition, claiming that bodybuilding had become too political and too reliant on chemical enhancement. Nevertheless, his own approach was far from natural. He followed intense, high-volume training sessions paired with enormous food consumption and rumored hormone cycles designed to maintain his massive size year-round. Richards' long absence from the spotlight fueled speculation about declining health, though he occasionally appeared in interviews discussing the sport's moral decline. In 2021, unconfirmed reports of his death circulated online, though later dismissed. Still, his legacy stands as the embodiment of bodybuilding excess, where achieving freakish proportions overshadowed the balance between performance, health, and human limitation. Kaylee Muscle, born Chuck Kirkendall in 1975, rose from a life of poverty and incarceration to become one of the most recognizable personalities in modern fitness culture. His transformation from prison bodybuilder to YouTube star and actor was both inspirational and extreme. Known for his massive, hypermuscular physique and aggressive persona, Kaylee often preached hard work over excuses. However, behind the scenes, his relentless pursuit of muscle size was fueled by heavy use of anabolic steroids, stimulants, and pre-workout compounds. His rapid growth and constant intensity placed enormous strain on his cardiovascular system. In 2021, Kaylee suffered a life-threatening heart attack caused by a 100% blockage of his left artery, which doctors described as a widowmaker. He survived, but the event exposed how far he had pushed his body beyond its natural limits. Following the incident, Kaylee publicly renounced steroid use and warned others about the dangers of chasing size and stimulation at all costs. His story stands as one of bodybuilding's rare second chances, a reminder that even those who survive their excesses carry permanent reminders of how fragile the line between strength and destruction truly is. Big Lenny, whose real name is Leonard Person, became a cult icon in the online bodybuilding community for his outrageous size, eccentric behavior, and unfiltered approach to life. Emerging from the Delray Misfits YouTube group, Lenny embodied the raw, underground side of bodybuilding, far from the polished professionalism of the IFBB stage. Standing over 6 feet tall and weighing nearly 400 pounds at his heaviest, Lenny pushed his body to the extreme through years of anabolic steroid cycles, insulin, growth hormone, and experimental compounds. His self-administered drug protocols often lacked medical supervision, combining multiple substances at doses far beyond competitive norms. Lenny's training philosophy revolved around pushing pain thresholds and testing limits, often recording bizarre or risky stunts that gained him a devoted yet concerned fanbase. Over time, his health visibly declined, marked by severe edema, respiratory distress, and repeated hospitalizations. Despite these warning signs, he continued living as an example of unrestrained extremity, calling himself a freak among freaks. Big Lenny's story highlights the physical and psychological cost of total commitment to mass culture, where shock value and notoriety often replace health, longevity, and moderation in pursuit of bodybuilding fame.